Hello, I'm Kate Davis, and this is Humor in the C-Suite, a show about how leaders use humor to create an extraordinary work culture. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Sara Schulting Kranz, a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and certified executive coach. She is highly sought after as a corporate speaker as well, drawing from 32 years of profound personal development, research, and executive coaching. She has crafted a potent 5-component framework, and this framework has empowered numerous individuals ranging from athletes to Fortune 500 executives, instilling in them the mindset and skills to boldly move forward within their organizations, teams, and personal lives. Currently, Sara is dedicated to a mission aimed at assisting individuals and organizations in transforming not only their businesses, but also their culture that shapes them. We had such a great talk. I'm so excited for you to hear her story. She is so brave and really, really funny. So please enjoy. Okay, so welcome to Humor in the C-Suite. I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I love your story. I love everything you do. I'm so interested about how you use humor because everything, like your book, Walk Through This.
Yes.
And it's just all so, I'm not anti-nature, but I definitely get nervous in nature. I'm just I can walk through New York and be like, smells like city. You know what I mean? Like when you're
Totally. I totally know exactly what you mean.
So I'm just so interested. So I just thought we would start off by telling everyone your story, how you got to be a leadership coach and everything you're doing, and then we'll get into it.
My story, we're going to just jump right in. My story is all about, really it's about personal leadership. I don't want to go too far into it. I do have the book. You can read the book. I went through a major trauma 11 years ago with my husband. I was a former teacher, hence Kranz, my last name, right? Former art teacher. And when I started going through the transformation of my trauma that I was walking through, hence the name of my book, Walk Through This, my entire life imploded, right? My entire life imploded 11 years ago. So I went through this massive divorce. I found out that there was multiple traumas and that were just imploding in my life. I found out that my husband had been betraying me. So many of us have had betrayals happen to us.
Yeah.
And my 17-year marriage imploded. I have 3 sons. So I found myself at a place of what am I going to do next? And who am I outside of all of this that happened to me? I was once a teacher, like I said. And so I went home to what I knew, which was teaching. That's really my place of recovery. There were 2 things, actually, Kate. It's very interesting that I'm on this with you because yes, it was a personal discovery. And it was also finding humor in my life and in my story. I remember sitting in my therapist's room. I don't know, it was my 2nd or 3rd session with her. And I started laughing about something that had happened, right? Within my day and kind of making light of a situation. And she looked at me and she said, I think you've got a lot more trauma in your life than what you're actually saying because you're hiding it behind your jokes, behind your laughter. Wow. And I know. And I've heard this from multiple people. You're just so lighthearted. You're so happy. There's got to be more there. Let's pull back the layers. And what I said to her was, my mom taught me a very important thing. She's since passed away. My mom taught me a very, very important thing, though. And she said, walk through the darkness, go through it, uncover it, cry, do all of that. That's important. The most important thing that you can do, though, is fill up that space with laughter.
I love that.
Right. My mom was just an amazing, amazing woman.
Yeah.
And so long story short, when I was going through my trauma recovery 11 years ago, I used nature as my space. And I also found this enlightenment out there. I'm sure just like you do as a comedian, right? Like you do when you're on stage, there's this enlightenment that happens. And I found my healing there. I also found my personal transformation. Most importantly, I found my voice. I came back home to who I was, right? And so I was climbing mountains. I was climbing the six pack of peaks down here in Southern California. I was taking my paddleboard out into the ocean. I was talking and laughing with dolphins and whales, like no joke. Like dolphins and whales would come out right in front of me, and I no joke would start screaming at them at sometimes like, "Hey, get out of my way! I'm literally like to whales. Like who screams at a whale?" And point being is like I was finding this person in me out in nature that I couldn't find anywhere else. And
Yeah.
that became home. I didn't know. People always say like the greatest leader will continuously go through this space of self discovery because leaders are always changing. And so I was literally going through my own personal leadership through this. And then that same therapist said to me, you need to like do something with this, like start a business, do something, start coaching. And so I did. Um, I'm one of those people who I don't like wasting time. I just don't. I'm 51 and I have a lot to accomplish in my life. And so I went fast tracked into coaching, fast track started my business. I lead leadership retreats through the Grand Canyon, Alaska, the San Juan Mountains. I wrote a book. I did a TED Talk all on forgiveness. And it's been one heck of an amazing journey. And now I
That's
keynote
amazing.
speak and do leadership coaching with companies and businesses. And I love it. Teams love it. I love what I'm doing.
And are you finding now that you've gotten through it and you've reinvented yourself and rediscovered yourself, and I love the fact your mom taught you to use humor in those situations.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say, like, I find like everyone who's been on the podcast with me who does have heavy jobs, who's been through a lot, really uses humor as a coping mechanism,
Right.
which I think, some people can say you're covering it up and some people can say it's really healthy to laugh at what we're going through. Did you find a balance within that?
Absolutely. It's funny because my clients, the reason I have so many repeat clients is I'm just going to state it like I love to have fun.
Yeah.
And and I remember the day that I found out of my betrayal. And I remember the moment. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this morning where there was a closing of the door of the person who I once was and would never be again. And I knew that. I knew in that moment I would never be that woman again.
Yeah.
The thing that's beautiful about that though is that you become the person that you were intended all along if you
Mhm.
choose. If you choose. And you have to have a balance between the hard and the soft. You have to have a balance between the tears and the laughter. You have to have a balance between the most challenging days and also knowing that on the other side of that you're going to have the success that you truly are searching for, that you really want in life, whatever that
That
looks
you're
like,
worthy of.
that you're worthy of.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't cause the pain. It wasn't about me.
Yeah.
Yet there was this personal transformation that comes outside of that. And so you have to have the balance of all of it, whatever balance is. The cup's not always going to be half and half. It's going to be full and empty, and it's going to be empty and full. And that's the point,
Yeah.
right? Like
Did you
that
use a
right
lot of
there is a
humor with your boys?
oh, are you kidding? All the time. I mean, my boys, I have three sons. They're now 33, 23, and 18.
Okay.
And we laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm now dating, believe it or not, my old high school sweetheart who
Oh,
after
I know so many people
32
who are doing that. That is
freaking
so
years.
crazy.
It's crazy. After 32 years, exactly 1 year after my mom passed away, Joe
Wow.
reached out to me and just unbeknown, like had no like inclination, no like, hey, nothing like that. It was just,
Yeah.
how are you doing? Uh, and then I reached back out to him and we are like peanut butter and jelly. Like it's
Aw.
just, it's like going back home. My point is we just took my youngest son up to Washington to look at colleges.
Yeah.
And I can get a little goofy. Like I'm like, let's do this or let's do that. And
Yeah.
he always laughs. And he was telling my son, he's like, I know that she drives you crazy sometimes. She's so fun. Like she's just like, I find the humor in her. And so, yes, I do a lot of laughter with my kids, a lot of
I love
laughter
that.
because you got to find laughter in all
Yeah.
of
And how are you incorporating that into your leadership, like when you're coaching and stuff? I'm so curious.
So I always tell people that when I'm coaching, first of all, my clients always say to me, again, I have a lot of repeat clients. They always say to me, you can fit 48 hours in 24. And that's the most fun about it because I go straight to the point with them.
Yeah.
And so there is a straight to the point, hey, you got to look in the mirror and give yourself the biggest uh, truth, right? Like it's all about the
Right.
truth. What do you
Yeah.
see? And just remember that on the other side of that, there's also this be good to yourself. Like
Right.
be very soft with yourself, laugh with yourself. No one's
Yeah.
perfect. And it's in those mistakes and in those things that happen when you can laugh about it, when you can say, hey, you know what? I screwed up today. Forgive
Yeah.
yourself, find some laughter, because I'm always talking about forgiveness as well. Forgiveness is one of the greatest professional strengths that we can have. And it's in that space of forgiveness and in that space of be good to you that you can also look at yourself and realize I'm not perfect. And that's the beauty of it. I don't want to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, absolutely. Like finding levity in those moments is so powerful. And it allows you to, forgive yourself, as you said. Do you believe that it plays a strong role in terms of building relationships?
Which forgiveness or laughter or both? Everything.
Well, we could go both. Yeah,
We
sure.
can go both. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I think the thing that's most important is that it deepens the
Yeah.
relationship with yourself. If you can't laugh, and which is the most important relationship you can be in. If you don't know yourself, how can you actually get in the deepest relationship with others? And
Yeah.
so that's where I'm constantly putting this into my son's heads, into my head, like Joe and I talk about it. You have to have that deepest relationship with yourself first, and you have to be able to laugh at yourself. It's not even laughing at yourself, it's laughing with yourself. Because
Yes.
when you can laugh with yourself and say, oh yeah, I screwed up. Like how many times when I'm on a route and I trip and fall and
Yeah.
it's not the embarrassment, it's the look at this, that's pretty funny. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to.
I'm really coming out of like a a mood of I'm trying to hold back my perfectionist because I find my perfectionist stops me from doing so much. Right? I'm
Mm.
always like, that video isn't perfect enough, or this isn't perfect. Like, nothing is ever perfect. And being able to laugh at yourself in those moments or with yourself, as you say, I think is really powerful. And I think it's just such a great point you made. And I really, really touch on that within my keynotes, how humor really does allow us to connect with each other and ourselves and our
Ah,
purpose a lot of times because we're more playful and discovering and being curious and allowing ourselves to be more kid-like that way. And I think there's so much creativity and innovation born out of that. Have you encountered challenges or misperceptions when you've ever used humor?
oh, heck yeah. A lot. Are you kidding? I think a part of it, I'll never forget the moment that I was sitting on the couch with my former therapist, who's, by the way, now my colleague and one of my dear friends, when she was like, what are you covering up through your laughter? Right? What is
Yeah.
this? What is this your coping mechanism for? Blah, blah, blah. And now that she's gotten to know me, she realizes it's actually one of the most healing tools that I have. That's the child within me that I never want to let go of. That's where my creative sense comes from. I get people have misperceptions on me a lot. I've been called everything from you're the soft leader when I'm like, what? Which is so funny. There's this softness to you. I'm like, well, you don't know me very well, do you? Because there's actually quite the balance between the
Yeah. It's so interesting that
strong
perception.
and yes, it is. And I've been called you come off too hard, right?
Of
Like you need
course,
to
because you're a
soften up a
woman.
little bit. I mean, okay, fine. You laugh too much. You don't take things seriously enough. You don't, and I'm like, Actually, that's me as one terrific stew, right?
Yeah.
Like it literally is. It's the stew. And so take it all. Take it all.
Are, are there any specific techniques you use with your clients when you're trying to teach them to trust humor?
That's a really good question. Are there any Yes, go back to the child within you. 100%.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
in my book I talk about who am I, and that's one of the chapters, who am I, and really diving into your values and who you are as a person, as a leader, as a mom, as a dad, as whomever. And in that I talk about the value. There's parts in there about the value of play, the value of coming home to who you are. And when we can go back to that child within us and have that childlike sense, that's where we can actually really dive into. That's where we can cultivate and use the tools that we had as kids, where we can be more creative. My sons, Joe bought my sons for Christmas lightsabers. Um,
yes.
yes. Okay. So this is a perfect example of that.
I
So
love that.
so he has three girls. I have three boys. So he's like, I'm
Oh
going to
my
get
God, you guys are the Brady
we
Bunch. I
seriously
know
got
that's such an old reference.
no, we seriously
People, yeah.
We
Anyway.
seriously are. And honestly, like this goes back to who am I as a child? Because you are as an
Yeah.
adult, just an adult version of a kid, by the way. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully you are. You're just a more wise version of who you were when you were born
Yeah.
on this
Because you
earth.
were
You don't
so
want to.
authentic then. You were just
Yes,
yourself and you had so much self love before
yes.
everyone tried to, and everything made you
Tried
question
to form
everything.
you, right?
Yeah.
So for Christmas, he sends me this text and he's like, "Hey, I bought the boys lightsabers so they're gonna be at your door on Monday." And I was like, "Why did you waste money on this? Like we're talking like the cool ones, right? Like the expensive
Yeah.
ones." And I'm like, why? And I just didn't even, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I wrapped them up and I gave them to the boys. Because we live in separate states. And so I had my boys for Christmas. So he wasn't there when they unwrapped him. And I'm telling you, like I made the coolest reel because they were so excited. They unwrapped these lightsabers and you'd have thought that like Joe gave them $1 million a piece. They were
Oh my
so
God.
excited. And then they're all like, "Oh my God, the sunset's amazing at the beach, Mom. Let's go down." They took the lightsabers down to the beach. The lightsabers are green. The sky is red. They're like,
I
going,
love
they're
that.
running around. And understand these are adults. These are like
Yeah.
men. We're
Yeah.
talking big athletes. And that comes home to what the question of what you're asking, accessing that play in us and accessing the humor. It's
Yeah.
in a child in us and continuously doing that. It is the coolest way to work through and to become who we were intended, right? Like that's where we find those pieces. We remember who we are.
Hi, it's Kate. I can't believe you made it halfway through the show. Look, if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Humor in the C-Suite, I would love to have you. So email me, kate@katedavis.ca. Do you find when you're coaching leaders, do you find they're resistant to that because they have to be
No,
such adults?
no, I don't think so. No, actually, no.
And are you doing
Actually,
teams
no,
of leaders?
no.
Are you doing teams of leaders together, or are they individual leaders?
Everything.
Okay.
I've taken executives, CEOs of multi-million dollar companies down into the
Yeah.
Grand Canyon where I do individual coaching and also group coaching. I do individual coaching for companies with leaders and managerial. The thing is when you give them permission to access it, they want more because
Yeah.
they don't give themselves enough permission to do that. And so when you actually can take them there and say, "Hey, permission granted," it's like coming home for them and they want more.
Yeah. I That's so great.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful things because I think that so many of us become, I don't stifled, serious about life.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's harsh. It's really like it's sad actually. And so I want them to come back to the space of comfort in what they know.
Yeah, and sometimes we forget what we know. So
Yeah.
it's great to have that reminder. Do you find when you're working with these teams, it really helps with collaboration when you are playing games and stuff like that?
Oh
And that
yeah.
they can take that back to their teams?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I had an executive, Joan, she's head of HR for New Balance, and she went on one of my retreats. And by the way, is not a big nature person, and yet she can now has been.
I
And
love
then
it.
not only did she go to the Grand Canyon, she went to Alaska, where we were camping and kayaking from literally from island to island next to glaciers. And the thing about being out in nature, for example, and understand, like, I coach in through Zoom, I coach in
Yeah.
person, I coach when I'm in nature. The point of the matter is, when you can get them and take them to a place or encourage them to go back to what they know, whatever that is.
Mhm.
If it's nature, if it's music, if it's laughter, if it's whatever, it gives them this permission, it grants them this permission to literally become more connected, not only with themselves, but also with the teams that they're working
Yeah.
with. So she took all of it back to New Balance. My point being, took it all of it back to New
Yeah.
Balance and had these stood on stage and gave this speech about, hey, like, this is what I just went through. And I'm encouraging everybody else to also access that part within themselves.
That is so great because
Yeah.
it just,
Hmm.
trickles down within an organization when it starts at the top.
Yeah. A hundred
And
percent.
it's and when you can have that levity within those groups, I find it really helps. I found like some of the coaching I've done over the past year, when I'm in a room with 10 executives, they can be resistant at first. They're terrified that, they're all like in this leadership group and they don't want to, which I find the perfect moment to say, "Oh, this is why I'm here." Right? This is
Right.
why you need me.
Right. 100%. And you know what? Here's the thing. If the door's closed, there's always a crack in the window. You go through that way with them.
Yes.
And that's what's like, I don't care who it is. I love a good challenge, clearly.
Yes.
Part of like why I do the work that I do. I love a good challenge. And so if I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of resistant people, I'm like,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yes.
Where is the crack? Because I'm
Yeah.
going to go through there. And then it all starts to unfold. And
I
sometimes I'm that person. Like, sometimes,
Yeah.
admittedly, I mean, I've given keynotes and stuff where I'm like, ooh, I'm the one that actually, I'm like, it's about me, right? Where I have to actually shift it this way so that I can get in.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like whenever I find I'm coaching or doing a keynote, I find it's always my voice will tell me how much I feel like I'm connecting with them. Because if
Hmm.
my throat starts going like a bit tight or whatever, I always know I don't have that connection and it manifests in my body so quickly.
Yes.
And
Yes. I have that same thing.
yeah, it's so funny. Now, I usually start it's so funny because I usually start the podcast off with what's your favorite joke? And I and so many of my guests are so uncomfortable with that. They're like, "I don't have one," or "It's dirty," or and I'm always like, "Well, you can pull it from your favorite comic or whatever. Do you have a favorite joke?"
So the favorite joke that I have is the one that Joe told me, and I still laugh to this day about it.
Yes.
How do they make holy water?
How?
They boil the hell out of it.
So dumb.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb that,
So funny.
that I love it. I mean,
Yeah. No,
I was like, okay,
it's a
that's just
great
so
joke.
dumb, but it's really funny. Like, it's so dumb.
It's so dumb, but so good. Come on. Okay,
It's so
look,
good.
if you were going to give advice to leaders who were, resistant about using humor or levity within the workplace, is there advice you can give them to, help them trust in it a bit more?
Yes, there definitely is. What would your business or your life look like? What is it going to continue to look like without it? And I think that that's actually, if we can step back for a second and imagine our life without a smile,
Yeah.
without laughter, without humor, without enlightenment, without creativity, without play, without thinking outside of the box,
Yeah.
without having growth, profitable growth, without, because literally, like, that's what you're not going to have
Yeah.
if you don't bring it in.
Yeah.
And how scary is that? How scary is it to not step out of our comfort zone and try new things?
And
Or
would you wanna work there? Right? Like
uh no. I mean,
yeah.
let's face it, there's so much that is energetically connected
Yeah.
in such a powerful way when we can laugh, when we can play, when we can get into that space.
Yeah.
And without it, I mean, ew. Like,
Yeah.
ew.
It's funny how our greatest challenges can be our greatest gifts. Like, you would never be where you were if all of that, 11 years ago didn't happen to you.
Oh,
And, you would just be a totally different person. It's so interesting how these lessons in our lives force us to take a step back, but also once you're through it, be able to laugh at it, laugh at those moments or laugh again, and life
yeah.
is serious enough without us adding more to it, you
Well,
know.
so Kate, I live literally across the street from my old house.
Oh,
So,
wow. Is
oh
your
yeah,
ex still there?
no, 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 no. He
Oh,
he
okay,
doesn't
okay.
he doesn't live there anymore. I decided to sell the house and 95% of our stuff and move into. We're talking 4,200 square feet, and we moved into 800 square feet across the street rental.
Wow.
And we were supposed to be here for 7 years. Or sorry, we were supposed to be here for 1 year. We've been here for 7 years because of COVID and everything else. And this Christmas, my son and my middle son, who played water polo at USC, and we were sitting outside talking about it, and he said, we were talking about like why I sold everything, why we got rid of the house and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And for me, it was, I wanted to bring us closer together and to start fresh. I wanted
Yeah.
to create a new home, whatever, not house, but a home,
Home.
right? Home within our soul, home within who we are, home within this family unit that was changed.
Yeah.
And he said, Mom, it's so weird. I look at that place and I don't even really remember. Like he goes,
Wow.
I remember. It's just so, I can't imagine not being where we are.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the humor, right? Like there's humor in all of it. I mean, I
Yeah.
can now laugh and say, wow, how did I not see that? Well, I know how I didn't see it. It's not me covering it up or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
really like, how funny is it that I was in that space? I mean,
Yeah.
and now where I'm at. So,
That's so interesting because we have one bathroom in our house. Well, we did for a long time. We have two now. But one of my favorite memories of my kids growing up is all of us getting ready in the bathroom together.
yeah,
And just sort of, yeah, fighting for the sink, or who's ever on the toilet would open the door so no one could see. And,
yeah.
like but it
We,
was just like every morning, all five of us would be in this one bathroom, all trying to get ready. And I loved it. Like all those little moments, where you don't have a lot, but what you have is just so wonderful.
and that's what it's about. And that
Yeah.
again comes back home to literally finding the play in it and getting creative.
Yeah. So, what are the benefits you found, like you've personally experienced? I mean, we've talked about a few of them, but from really incorporating humor into your leadership style.
What are the benefits I found? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that people, this comes back to forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that people think is like a spiritual thing, or it is to forgive is to forget, or, it's not about any of that stuff. When we can when we can allow ourselves to try new things and find the forgiveness when we make mistakes, or if we screw up, or, we didn't do things the way that we thought we were going to, things didn't land how we thought it was going to. When we can find
Yeah.
forgiveness in that, there's also a sense of play and laughter on the other side of it.
Right.
Right. And so that's without forgiveness, without laughter, there is no growth.
Right. Yeah.
Because we hold ourselves in a space of a box and what we know is comfortable. And there is no growth unless you step out of the comfort zone and you actually try new things. And so knowing that, okay, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to screw up. It's okay. There's lessons in quote failure, right? I don't
Yeah.
even know if like failure is a true thing, to be honest with you, in my life, because it's like, did I really fail? No, it's just a pivot. It's a navigational tool.
Yes.
That's all it
Yeah.
is. And so when we can look at it in that way, when we can experience it in that way, that's where we actually grow. That's where we can find who we are as a leader.
That's so great. Yay, Sarah.
You know, I love this work. I really do. I
Yeah.
think that it's so funny, Kate, because like I never imagined that I'd be doing this work. Never.
I never thought I'd be a comic ever. That never crossed my mind. Never, ever, ever.
That's
It's
really
so
fun. That's
funny.
funny right there.
Yeah. Like if you would have said to me when I was 20, you're going to be a comic, I would have went, you're insane. So,
That's really that's really
yeah.
I think that's actually worth exploring right there, because I
Yeah.
think that when we're little kids, we already have the seeds been planted as to who we're going to be.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always say, like, go back to also what it was that interested you as a child, because it's
Yes.
seed planted. There's a reason that you
I was always
chose.
putting on shows and telling jokes as a kid.
There you go.
Always.
There was a reason that my mom at a garage sale purchased a desk, and I was like, oh my God, I got a desk. Yay, I'm gonna be a teacher. Like there's a reason for that. There's a reason I got so excited about that. Lined up all my
Yeah.
teddy bears and taught to them.
And now you're just teaching in a different way, at a different capacity, which is
Mhm.
fascinating. Coaching,
Yeah,
teaching,
yeah, it's all the same.
yeah.
It's all in the same mold.
So I always love to end the podcast off with, what is the funniest thing that's ever happened to
Oh gosh, I was thinking about this.
you?
Okay. I was like, am I going to embarrass myself this bad? Yes, I am, because there's so much learning in this. I'll give you the very quick version of
Well,
what
you don't
happened.
have to. I'm so excited.
Oh,
Go
okay.
on.
So my very first time heading into the Grand Canyon was with, I call him my legend, my Uncle Gene. And he invited me to go down with 20 other people or 19 other people, him and this whole group. And it was mainly people who have been down into this Grand Canyon several times prior to. So these are people that are like really big hikers and climbers. And I was the newbie. So on the way to the Grand Canyon, I started feeling sick. And I didn't want to give up that I was not feeling well, because I was like, nothing's going to hold me from climbing down into this Grand Canyon with you guys. Well, it was a very bad diarrhea, like a whole intestinal
Oh,
bug
yeah.
that my son so sweetly gave to me.
Yeah. They
And
do.
and I was so sick. And it was 120 degrees. And on top of it, I also had my period.
No.
And so I share this with you because sometimes the hardest things that we can walk through also end up, we don't even realize, becoming what I now talk about on stage, which is the Grand Canyon. You have to descend into our challenges and our difficulties, our change, in order to ascend in agility and lasting growth, right? So this is my Grand Canyon like speech, my keynote.
Yeah.
I don't talk about this in my keynote. Maybe I should.
I'm
Maybe I should.
my pants.
I don't talk about it, but point being is like that. I remember hiking down to the Grand Canyon and I was like, I will never come back here again. I will never,
Wow.
ever come back here again. This is the most grueling, difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And then I was down there, and in the middle of the night, I happened to be on the top bunk. It was so bad that you can imagine what happened in the middle of the night, and I didn't even know it. And I woke up the next morning, and I
Oh,
was like, who just ranched out this entire cabin? Like, it was
yeah.
bad. And so, I was so sick when I was down there that I was wondering, how the heck am I going to get out? I mean, I'm not one to actually share that kind of stuff with people.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it was embarrassing. I had
Yeah.
underwear that I had to clean out, that I'd hanging out outside, that I was like, I cannot get
You were
myself
sick.
well. I was so sick. It was embarrassing, and yet so weird and
Freeing.
crazy that, like, here then I'm climbing out, and I remember saying to my uncle, I'm like, I will never come back. Like, I won't ever do this again in my life. And the
Yeah.
very last pitch out of the canyon
Yeah.
taught me what resilience is, and how you can work through the hardest things. This is before I went through everything, right? You can work
Yeah.
through your hardest things physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and come out on the other side and realize that if I could do this, I can do anything. And
Yeah.
now I lead people down into the Grand Canyon. I've taken the USC men's water polo team. I've taken a blind pair athlete twice.
I've never been to the Grand Canyon.
Well, I'll take you. There
Well,
you
that's
go. There you go. I'll take you.
it.
And every time I go now, it's like, oh, this is like peanuts. This is no big deal. And
Wow.
that's what life is about. Like, walk through
Yeah.
your hard things, because you can walk through any hard thing. Every future hard thing becomes easier.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just even like all of that is just such good advice. And what a story to end on. And being able to look back and laugh at that and share it
Oh my gosh.
is, oh my gosh, like what a moment. And we've all had those moments. That's being human. Those are
It's so
human
human.
moments.
So human. My uncle was like, "Are you okay?" And I just kept lying to him, like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay." And I
Yeah.
was so ill. And then when they
Oh,
all walked past my bunk and saw all my underwear hanging up on the clothesline, they were like, "Oh, she's not okay." I'm like, "No, I'm not.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm so
Your
not
uncle's
okay."
your uncle's probably thinking, yeah, I don't want to come back with you either.
Yeah, well, we ended up going back several times together. That's what's so funny. He was, and he to this day, he's like, that was like kind of dangerous. I'm like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Nothing was going to hold me from doing this, though.
Wow. You're a
Yeah.
maniac. I love
I
it.
am a little bit of a maniac, and I love that about me. I love that about me.
Oh my gosh. So next year, what toys are you going to get your kids for Christmas, even though they're grown men?
Oh, so funny enough, the middle one wants the red lightsaber now. He's like, I want every
So
lightsaber.
funny.
I
I
know.
love it.
I'll ask Joe.
To
That's the
find
great
your
advice.
child self again. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing just so much
Me.
insight in your stories. And I just feel like I've known you forever. And
Thank you. Same. It's the same. Same.
yeah, so much fun. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.